KO Coliseum is TFT's 15th set, and as with every set, people will be confused and somewhat lost when the new set releases. In this video, I'm going to walk you through a lot of the generic comps in the set, both Reroll, Fast 8 and Fast 9, as well as give insight on how to play each comp, and then finally wrap it up, I will show a board for each hero augment. Hopefully this video isn't too long, but is in depth enough that you get to keep up to pace with the PvE findings before you play. This video will also contain a certain comp that I have not seen a lot of people playing, and in my opinion has the potential to completely dominate the meta once it's found. We're going to start off this video with reroll comps, starting with the 1 costs. There are a few reroll comps for 1 costs, but the main one that sticks out is Kale. Kale is really busted. The items she wants are basically Rage Blade, an AP item, and then Gunblade. There are 2 main ways to play her. You can either play Wraith Kale or Heavyweight Kale, both of which are rerolling Kale and Zac. Zac is your main tank and Kale is your main carry. The idea is you hit Kale 3, Zac 3, and then tempo to 9, playing the units that you can find, and then eventually fitting in the final board. The reason it's important to get to 9 on Kale is due to her ability. Her ability changes based on your player level. I believe it's level 6 and level 9. These upgrades that make Kale insanely strong, so you want to hit 9 as quick as possible. Next reroll comp we're going to talk about is Prodigy, Ezreal, and Syndra. The idea with this board is you reroll 4 1 costs which fit well together: Syndra and Ezreal, Rel and Garen. You eventually want to be able to fit 5 Battle Academia, 4 Bastion, and 4 Prodigy. Think of this comp as similar to Gorilla from last set if you played last set. This is just a classic 1 cost reroll comp that tempos you into higher cost carries such as Yumi, Leona for your frontline, a Braum, and Seraphine, but the 1 costs are strong enough to carry you until then. I believe this comp is very situational. If you're seeing a lot of Syndras or Rels, Garens, and Ezreals, then I think you can go this comp with no hesitation, but you eventually will want to pivot into the stronger carries later on. Final 1 cost reroll comp is quite complicated. It's crew reroll. It's simple and complicated at the same time. You want to go for Malphite and Sivir, both 3-star, but then you want to go to level 8, and the reason you're doing that is because you want to 3-star your crew units. However, the odds don't change and you get free rerolls every turn, so you will be as likely to see Ziggs on level 8 as you would be on level 7, so there is no point staying on level 7. This is the same for Shen. You have the same odds as hitting him on 8 as you do on 6, so there is no point staying on 6. Your main tank in this comp is obviously Malphite and Shen, and then you want to basically put your AD items on your Sivir and then your AP items on your Ziggs. So let's get started with the 2 cost rerolls. First of all, we have Xayah. Xayah reroll is pretty strong. You basically want to go level 6 and roll for Xayah and 4 Bastions, plus maybe a Yasuo just for the edgelord. Once you're Xayah 3, you basically just want to play as many edgelords as possible whilst retaining the 4 Bastions. This comp works well with like emblems, so you can fit everything, and also there is a specific power up for Xayah. Power up that I've had success with is called something like Kahuna or something like this. The effect basically every 6 attacks it deals true damage, and because you want Rage Blade and Kraken on Xayah, deals a lot of true damage, you're attacking quite often. Next reroll comp we have is Janna. This comp is like pretty particular. I've played it a few times and either I feel really strong or really weak. The way you play this comp is you basically just play Janna with a scaling AP item and Rage Blade Gunblade, and then you play Rakan as your main tank. You also want to try to find Malphite 3. If you have a Zig, he just gives the extra XP when you reroll. Overall, this comp feels kind of very simple, but I think it depends on the power-ups you get that make this either a top 4 or not. If your lobby is also playing a lot of quick fights, like comps that want to burst, I don't think Protector is as good. You want long fights with this. You want Janna to be able to stack up her Archangels. The last 2 cost reroll comp is Kai'Sa. Kai'Sa has an infinite stacking AD passive. Think of like Shaco from last set. You basically want to play this if your Kai'Sa is tempoing, getting a lot of kills, stacking up attack damage. You want AD items on her, of course. You want something like Shojin, i.e. Guard Breaker, and then you basically want to play Darius as your frontline with 4 Supreme Cell. This is a very like tempo comp. If your Kai'Sa's not getting kills early, this is just going to feel really shit, and also your frontline can be quite weak if you don't find the Darius 3, so this is a bit of a mix. This transitions me into Darius reroll, though Darius reroll in my opinion is just way better. It's a 3 cost reroll where you're playing around Darius instead. You're looking for fire items on Darius like Sterax, BT, and IE Hodge, things like this. You're basically going to want to play 6 heavyweight. You really want him to stack the heavyweight, and then if you get a heavyweight emblem, it goes on a Kali. Like, this is basically just if you hit Darius 3 and the heavyweights, you're kind of chilling, and then you can look for minor upgrades, such as you can put in a Lee Sin on level 9 or level 8 if you find him. You can also look for Jace 3, which you can put a Thieves Gloves on this character and he uses it very well. Final unit I wanted to talk about, which is my special unit, is Lulu. And I think Lulu reroll, specifically Rammus or Smolder, is insanely broken. Obviously, depending on whether you take Rammus or Smolder, this is a different comp. Interesting thing about Lulu is the fact that Smolder, Cogmore and Rammus are in different pools. So therefore, if you have a Rammus 2 and somebody else has more Rammuses than you can change it to Cogmore, complete Cogmore 3 and then change back to Rammus and you will have Rammus 3 as well. I think this is insanely broken because in theory there's way more of your unit in the pool and it becomes way easier to hit a 3 cost whilst contested. I think Cogmore is by far the worst Lulu unit. He only really shines if you have Dawn Core, which you have to get out of an artifact, which is just becomes a bit of a pain. So he's very situationally good, but Rammus and Cogmore I've found to work on their own. You can build a comp around these units. The way I like to play Rammus is to basically solo frontline him with 2 gargoyles, a warmogs, and then I play 6 sorks. I'm sure there are other ways to play Rammus. You can probably just put in a sniper's backline or something, but something with a little bit of frontline, like sorks, Swain walks up and Kennen walks up. So you like, but Rammus is taking the initial damage, so he stacks up the gargoyles. He's an insane solo frontliner, so I think that that's ideally how you play Rammus. With Smolder, I think you just play a frontline with a Smolder and you play something like Bastion or Heavyweight or something that just gives him time, and then you could maybe put an emblem on him if you get them, for example a sniper emblem, and then you can play Sniper Smolder or something along these lines. But I think these units should not be slept on because of how easy they are to 3-star. I will probably make another video just on this topic alone and how to play this, because this has basically been my go-to PvE comp that I have found that not a lot of people have also been playing. Let's talk about some 4 to 5 cost comps. Jinx is an insane 4 cost who has 2 sort of different comps. She either has 5 sniper, 4 bastion, and you're mainly playing around Jinx. Your main tank is Leona. You want the power snacks on these 2. In this comp, you want Jinx to have Kraken, Rageblade, and IE. Jinx also has another comp though, which is Star Guardian. Star Guardian Jinx is not as good in my opinion, but in this comp, she wants Shojin, IE, and Guard Breaker. You want her cast to be doing the most damage. With Sniper Jinx, you can sort of play Kraken, Rageblade because your auto attacks are dealing a lot of damage. Star Guardian Jinx involves playing around Varus, and this might get confusing, but pure Star Guardian Jinx, where you go 8 Star Guardian and you have to hit 20k mana to make the trait prismatic, is super hard to hit, and the frontline doesn't feel very strong. I think if you are only playing for 8 Star Guardian, you're not very strong. If you want to play around Varus with Star Guardian and you play Cassante as your frontline, I think it's a little bit better. Though I think the best variation of this comp is definitely 5 sniper, 4 bastion Jinx.
Ash's Jugs
is as simple as it sounds. You're playing Juggernauts and you're playing Ashe. Ashe gets Duelist from Udyr, who is also a Juggernaut, and you get a +1, so you can sort of play anything in here. You could maybe even play Lulu, you could play a 5 cost, let's say Zyra, or you could play Twisted Fate. Just, you can play anything in this slot. But the main idea of this comp is as simple as it sounds. You're main carrying your Ashe, and then you're using Set and Udyr as your main frontline. This comp works really well with things like Flicker Blade. Ashe normally wants Kraken, Rageblade, and then something along the lines of Red Buff or Giant Slayer or just a 3rd item, but Flicker Blade sort of changes this and you can mix up your items a bit more and the comp just becomes a lot stronger. But the base version is pretty strong. It's a good top 4 comp. The comp I'm going to talk about is 7 Mech, 7 Mighty Mech. It's sort of iffy from what I've played. It works really well when you have something like an augment such as aura farming, where you know you're going to have a Yone too. You can just play around stacking mech units until you get that Yone in, and then your Yone is going to be really strong. You want to basically use Karma as your secondary carry, Yone as like a frontline damage, and then Jarvan and Set as your main tanks. You want Set and Samira in this as they give Juggernaut, Soulfighter, and Samira gives Yone Edgelord. You have the luxury of a mech emblem. You want to replace GP with Rise, but this comp is sort of very much reliant on hitting the 7 mech. The mech itself is very strong once you hit 7, but you really need that Yone and specifically technically like Yone 2 makes it like a really good comp, but obviously that involves hitting a 5 cost, which is and 2-star 5 cost, which is quite difficult. Yone wants items like similar to Darius items like Sterax, IE, Hodge, BT, these sort of frontline items. Each Soul Fighter basically revolves around playing around Samira and Set until you hit Gwen, and then you can maybe play around Gwen instead as your main carry. It's just a vertical Soul Fighter trait. I don't think you should really be playing Soul Fighter unless you're in an insane win streak or you have a Soul Fighter emblem, which is the better pattern. I think this comp only really works when you have a Soul Fighter emblem, and the best person to put that on is Volley, and you basically want to just play 8 Soul Fighter with Volley. Set as your main tank, Samira and Volley as like damage dealers, and then Gwen if you can find her, and then she wants the AP items. Samira is an AD caster, so she wants items like IE, Shojin, and Guard Breaker. There's not really much to this comp. It's just a vertical fast 8 comp, but you want to win streak to it or have an emblem. There's a secret, maybe not, it's not secret. Gwen, if you put 2 sniper focuses on her, will hit the entire board. So that's something to be aware of. If you have like a call to chaos where you get a bunch of snipers focus, you can put them on Gwen and she will hit the entire board, and it's obviously really strong. The next comp I want to talk about is Luchador, specifically 6 edgelord for Luchador. You basically want to play around getting in as many edgelord as possible, as well as Luchador, and the main person this is benefiting is Volibear. Volibear is like your main damage source until you hit Yone. Once you hit Yone, you can put items like similar to Volibear's items on him. You also have another avenue of playing around Samira, and you want 4 Luchador in, so if you hit the 4 Luchador and let's say you get an emblem or you have a edgelord emblem, you basically want to Luchador Yone instead of Mundo, and if you have an edgelord emblem, you basically want to play Braum over Xayah. Volibear and Yone in this comp just feel like they do not die. They just deal so much damage and don't die, especially if Yone has a Luchador emblem. He will just heal to half again after taking half his HP and damage, and then obviously he has things like Sterac, BT, maybe IE, Hodge, like these sort of items, so it just feels like he doesn't die. Doesn't necessarily mean you want the fight to go long though. You basically want to survive their burst and then kill them. If the fight goes long and you're up against something like, let's say, Protector Janna, it can become a bit tricky, but this comp is insanely strong that I do not think it will lose to basically a lot of things other than maybe other fast 9 comps. Board for this is obviously insanely expensive. I mean, you're playing around Yone 2, Volibear 2, Samira 2, and hopefully Braum 2. You can use Yasuo as an early item holder for things like your Volibear, but it's sort of a tough early game. The last 4 cost I want to talk about is basically Yumi and 7 Academia. 7 Academia was super OP at the start of the PvE, but fell off because of nerfs and bug fixes that was making it too OP. I think though it can find a place as a solid top 4 comp and is worth learning, as it can quickly become meta again with buffs on any given patch of the set. Your main carry in this comp is Yumi. You want to give her 1 mana item, which is either blue buff or adaptive helm if you have Prodigy in. If you don't have Prodigy in, I think it's always blue buff. Then you want Gunblade, which sustains your frontline, and then Dual Gauntlet to basically crit damage. This can be really strong with Battle Academia emblem for a Seraphine. It's weaker right now, but I think this can become super OP again, or just given any sort of slight buffs. Your main tank in 7 Academia is obviously Leona. She gets Bastion from Garen, and you're playing 7 Academia. You can sort of go for Caitlyn 3 as your main AD, like Caitlyn's your main AD damage regardless, but you can go for Caitlyn 3 in this comp. She deals quite a lot of damage, but she's not something you should prioritize. If you hit her, it's nice, and it might make a difference in placements, but I don't think it's worth like rolling down for. The other version of this is Yumi with 6 Bastion, where you're just playing 6 Bastion instead of Vertical Academia, with Yumi as your main carry and then Leona as your main tank again. A good way to know whether to play this or Vertical Academia is if you have a Bastion emblem. If you have a Bastion emblem, you can basically fit 6 Bastion 4 Prodigy very easily. Otherwise, you're going to sort of be stuck on 6 Bastion 3 Prodigy, and it's harder to fit your Seraphine in. On screen now, I'm going to show some hero augment comps and which hero augment they are, things like that. This video is already getting too long and there's a lot to cover in this video, so I'm just going to chuck these on screen, and then I'm also going to chuck up some key artifact holders which I have found have worked out, because I know that, you know, people are going to be queuing up in their placement games, they queue up and all of a sudden they get an artifact and they have no fucking idea what to do with it. I'm not really going to touch on the actual power snacks at the moment because there's too much of them and there's not enough data and things like that. I'm hoping that data gets released on them so it's easier to know which ones are the best, or we need people playing on live to see whether these are actually the best ones. We just need more play experience. Other than that, thanks for watching. This video is quite long. Hopefully this makes you a little bit more familiar with what to sort of look for, what comps you can sort of play towards. I will probably be doing a video on Lulu specifically because that's what I'll probably be playing when the set releases on live. This is obviously recording a few days before. If they absolutely got any of these comps, they might not be worth taking, but this is more of a just comps that you should be looking for, not so much a tier list. But yeah, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.